Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you all. You all look wonderful. My goodness. Okay, we are waiting, for the congressman. However, we would like to rise now and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you lead us in the pledge, Francis?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we'll have a moment of silence, please, to remember our veterans and our first responders. Okay. So while we wait for the congressman, we're going to ask.
introduce the committee.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Deborah Marks. I work for Assemblyman Matt Slater, so I am your liaison to the Yorktown Senior Advisory Committee. Just prior to the meeting, I wanted to say that I was speaking to someone about NYSEG. You can call our office for that. That's perfectly acceptable. 9 times out of 10, you're going to get me on the phone, and it's a sympathetic ear, and we will try to do whatever we can to help you out with that. We can't necessarily get a bill lowered, but we can certainly look into what the problem is. Our phone number is 518, I'm giving you my cell phone. It's 845-278-2923, and we'd be happy to help you out. That, Con Ed, anything like that you need, any state agency, for instance, we can help with. The other thing just to mention, as I had last time, but it was at the end of the meeting and many people might not have heard, Westchester County Habitat for Humanity has an aging in place repair program. You do have to fill out an application. There are income limits, but you can see me afterwards, and I'd be happy to give you the application. Okay, you're good now.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Francis McVetti, one of our members, Daryl Lindholm, Jenny Menton, our co-chair.
Can I say a few things?
Deborah Marks, liaison to Assemblyman Slater.
Our wonderful town clerk is here as well, Diana. I see the congressman is here, so I know he has another urgent appointment, so we're going to get him right on. So thank you, Congressman. Thank you. Right by the microphone, yes.
In the hot spot.
Yeah, the microphone.
Why don't you move that away from him, the other?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I know you're very busy, but we appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, for those that don't know me, my name is Mike Lawler. I currently serve as your representative in the U.S. House of Representatives. Represent the 17th District, which includes all of Rockland County, where I live, everything north of the Tappan Zee Bridge in Westchester, all of Putnam County, and 3 towns in Dutchess County, East Fishkill, Paulding, and Beekman. Since taking office in January, I've been working on the Financial Services Committee and the House Foreign Affairs Committee. So a lot of the work that I've been focused on in Congress has been centered around those 2 committees, in addition to all the things that we're bringing to the floor as part of our commitment to America and the work that we're doing with respect to cost of living, with respect to trying to bring down inflation, securing the border, dealing with our immigration crisis here in the country right now, dealing with our energy crisis. As we all know, we've had a very high cost of energy for the last few years, and so we're looking at what we can do in terms of domestic production of energy and try and get us on the right track there. But a lot of the work in Congress right now, in this immediate moment, has been centered around the debt ceiling. I'm sure many of you are concerned about that and have questions about it. So let me kind of walk you through where things stand on that. So throughout this entire discussion, my 3 parameters have been very simple. The President, the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, our senator from New York, and the Speaker all have to negotiate and they have to work together. Number 2, we have to cut spending over the long haul. And number 3, we cannot default. Obviously, we've never defaulted in the history of our country, and I don't think any of us have any intention of allowing that to happen. So there's been a lot of back and forth, as is often the case in politics, and until there's a deadline, people don't seem to want to actually get to the negotiating table. But Secretary Yellen has said that the deadline is June 1st, so we're about 2 weeks away. And the president and the speaker finally met again this past week, and the president, hey Tom, the president appointed 3 people within the White House to negotiate with the speaker and his staff on a deal. House Republicans passed a bill a few weeks ago called the Limit, Save, and Grow Act. It would save taxpayers $4.8 trillion over 10 years. Despite some of the rhetoric that has been used, nothing within the bill outlines the budget process or the appropriations process. So there's no specific cuts to anything. What the bill does is says, going forward for this fiscal year, we need to bring the numbers back to fiscal year 22. And fiscal year 22 numbers were in effect 5 months ago. So for anybody to say, oh, they're looking to cut seniors or veterans, they're trying to, put poor people back on the street, that's not what's happening here. What we're saying is you can't continue to spend money we don't have. And it's clear over the last many years, both parties are responsible for this. But it's clear that we have allowed spending to get completely out of control. Think about this. About 15 years ago, our national debt was $9 trillion. That was the debt from the beginning of the founding of the country all the way through about 2006. $9 trillion. It's almost $32 trillion today. So in 15 years plus, we have gone on a out-of-control spending spree. We've had, obviously, 2 wars that we were facing. We had a financial collapse in 2008, and then obviously COVID. And there's a lot of factors for why we've spent money the way we have. But I think anybody who's being honest about it recognizes we can't continue to do it this way. On top of that, we have critical programs like Social Security and Medicare that you all rely on. Mm-hmm. And I want to be very clear to everybody in this room, despite any nonsense that gets sent to you or advertisements that get put out, I will not cut Social Security and Medicare, period.
Good.
So the objective has to be to make sure that those programs are sustainable for the long term and that your children and your grandchildren will be able to benefit from those programs. And so I think one of the things that I've talked about, and I'm part of the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is a bipartisan group of members of Congress, we've talked about putting together a blue ribbon commission to really come up with how we ensure that the trust funds for Social Security and Medicare are fully funded over the long haul. Mm-hmm. We met with the Congressional Budget Office. All members of Congress were invited. I would say probably 2/3 of us were there, both parties. And the CBO basically said to us, if you do nothing, if you don't touch these programs and do absolutely nothing, both will go bankrupt within 10 years. So it is not a function of saying we're going to go in and cut. It's a function of saying how do we make sure that they have the revenues that they need, that the programs are sustainable, and that we are ensuring for future generations it's there. I'm sure all of you who have paid into it and are currently benefiting from it want to make sure that it's there for your children and your grandchildren. And that's going to be the objective, and we're going to have to deal with it. We can't keep kicking it down the road. So it's going to come up as part of discussions at some point in the next few years. But it's something we're all going to have to deal with in a bipartisan way, or it's not going to get done. And if we do nothing, as the CBO said, if we just leave it alone, don't do anything, both are going to go bankrupt. So that obviously is not a good solution here. In terms of the migrant crisis that's going on right now, as I'm sure many of you have seen, the mayor of New York City has been searching for locations outside the city of New York to move migrants. New York City has taken in 60,000 migrants since last year. They are busting at the seams in terms of trying to house and accommodate the migrants. In the state budget, New York State just gave them $1 billion, taxpayer money, $1 billion to provide housing, provide care, food, laundry services
Free telephones.
for the migrants that are in New York City. The challenge has been the way that the mayor has gone about it. For 50 years, those seeking asylum have been relocated all across the country, including in our communities here in Yorktown and other parts of the Hudson Valley. So that is not the issue. The issue is when the mayor of the city of New York decides that he's going to transport hundreds, if not thousands, of migrants into a community without any communication, coordination, or cooperation with the local elected officials. And so in Rockland County, County Executive Ed Day pushed back very strongly. The town supervisor in my town, the town of Orangetown, Teresa Kenny, pushed back very strongly because the city was entering into a contract with a hotel that did not have the right to operate as a shelter and did not have the right to house people for more than 30 days. And so they got temporary restraining orders against the hotel and against the city of New York. Orange County followed suit. They sued. They got a temporary restraining order. I believe Dutchess County and Sullivan County are now in the process of trying to deal with the same thing. This is a crisis, but it's a crisis of our own making on two levels. Number one, we have the most porous southern border we've ever had in the history of our country. Exactly. Tens of thousands of migrants are crossing over the border every day. That is totally unsustainable. Since Joe Biden took office, over 5 million migrants have come into the country. Now, in some cases, they are seeking asylum legally. There are serious challenges in Central and South America and in the Caribbean. And many of these folks are seeking asylum, and there's a process. The problem is there's such a backlog that at minimum it's taking 2 to 3 years to be heard. So in the interim, these folks are being allowed to stay here, and because of the influx at the border, many of these southern states have been sending them to New York City. Now, why are they sending them to New York City? Because New York City chose to be a sanctuary city in 2016. So now, because they're getting overwhelmed, they don't know what to do. And now they want to have all of us in the Hudson Valley share in the burden of dealing with this. I've said this many times. This is not about being against immigrants or immigration. My wife is an immigrant. I've been through this process. It is a fundamentally broken system, and it needs to be reformed. We need to secure our border. We need to deal with the fact that there's 11.5 million people that are here undocumented. You're not rounding them all up and kicking them out, so you got to deal with it. And then you have to fix the legal immigration system so that people who want to come here and participate in our economy, in our communities, they want to assimilate, that they can. Think about this based on our immigration system, which hasn't been reformed since Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was president the last time we reformed immigration. We educate people. We give people student visas to come here and get educated. And because of the way the system is designed, as soon as they get their degree, we're literally sending them back home. Now, you're talking medical doctors, you're talking high-tech jobs, engineers. We're educating them and then booting them out based on the system. And then meanwhile, we have a southern border that is so porous and people are coming in and they're staying here for decades in the shadows. The system doesn't work. It doesn't work. So it needs to be reformed. It needs to be fixed. And we need to actually come up with something that is workable. House Republicans passed a bill last week, H.R. 2, which would secure the border and would require the Biden administration to increase the number of border personnel, stop catch and release, increase the number of court personnel to hear these asylum cases in an expeditious manner, require that people have to apply for asylum in their country of origin rather than coming to the border to do it, because we can't sustain this level of influx. So that's the first step, and we're moving towards hopefully getting some consensus. I think you're seeing the frustration of Mayor Adams. He's not wrong in the things he's saying about this. The city is overwhelmed, and I get it. But the only way you're going to stop that is if we stop the massive influx at the border. Otherwise, New York City is going to continue to get hundreds, if not thousands, of migrants a week coming up here. So those are the two most pressing issues that we're dealing with right now. As I said, I'm on the Foreign Affairs Committee. I just came back recently from a trip to Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, as well as a trip to Israel and Jordan. And a lot of our focus and the work that we're doing is centered around the alliance that has been created between China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. And that is, when you think about some of the things that we focus on a day-to-day basis and some of the politics and the back and forth and just the vitriol that goes around, and then you see what's going on in the rest of the world, and you see some of the challenges that we're dealing with, sometimes the things that we argue about are very, very petty and small in comparison to the real challenge that we're dealing with. And I think the American people overall need to focus a lot more on what is happening around us and what China in particular is doing to undermine our currency, to undermine our economy, to steal intellectual property, to use satellites and spy balloons to undermine our national security. And there's a lot of complex problems that we're dealing with, and I really think we need to be a little more serious about them, to be honest. Last thing I'd say is, obviously, for our area in particular, the cost of living is a challenge. And for all of you, certainly, that are on fixed incomes, I know that has been a real problem, especially the cap on salt and the impact that that has had on our community. Is the first bill I introduced was to lift the cap on salt. There are a number of us from New York, California, New Jersey, Democrats and Republicans working together to get some sort of fix on salt. I'm not sure we're going to be able to lift the cap entirely. It's slated to expire in 2025, the cap. But I do think we can make progress on it, lifting the number and doubling it for married couples. So we're in the process of working through that, and I hope that we have something this year on it. So that way, when you go to file your taxes next year, you'll be able to fully, or at least deduct at a higher level again with respect to salt. So that's something that we are going to continue to work on and fight for. It's my top legislative priority locally. But certainly, right now, dealing with the debt ceiling, the border crisis, those are the focuses of what we're doing down in Washington. So with that, happy to take any questions, comments, or insults that you have.
Thank you for coming.
Yep.
Is it on? Did you push
It's
the-
on. Speak into it. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to know what
Hold
they're
it closer
doing.
Andrea, hold it like
Hold it
this.
closer,
There you
that's
go.
it.
I wanted to know better.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
I'm not used to this. I just wanted to know what they're doing as far as election integrity, because I think that's important for the next election.
So elections generally are dealt with at the state and local level. Congress does not have direct oversight over elections. But what a bill that I am introducing would eliminate and block the use of ranked choice voting in federal elections. This system, to me, is a problem. If in New York we don't have a runoff, so whoever gets the highest vote wins, period. In other states they have a runoff, meaning if you don't get above 50% of the vote, then the top two run in a runoff election a few weeks later or a month later, and then they choose the winner between those two. Ranked choice voting is basically a way to do that, but to do it at the same election. So New York City implemented ranked choice voting for mayor. The state of Maine, the state of Alaska have introduced ranked choice voting. Other municipalities and jurisdictions have introduced it. The concept is if you get 50 plus 1%, you win. If you're under 50 plus 1, they go from the back, and whoever finished in last place, their votes get reallocated based on the individual voter's preference. So I'm going to rank, I want to vote for Mike Lawler, number 1. I want to vote for Matt Slater, number 2. I want to vote for Tom Diana, number 3. If Tom finishes third, Tom's votes then get split between Matt and I based on how I, as an individual voter, rank them. My problem with this concept is it's one person, one vote.
Yeah.
So
Where's that?
if you pick the third place person, why are you getting now to say, I prefer that person? Like, that doesn't make sense to me in concept or in practice. And it is causing chaos in some of these federal elections that we've seen. So I've introduced a bill that will prohibit it in federal elections.
Good.
I think at the end of the day, let's put aside claims of stolen elections and so on. There's always going to be a challenge in any election. And I have seen firsthand, having been in politics a long time, I've seen firsthand voter fraud. I've seen just last year before I ran for Congress, I was running for re-election to the state assembly. The Democrats put petitions in for a candidate who was registered to vote in my district in Rockland County, my assembly district. The individual was also registered to vote in the state of New Jersey. The individual lived in the state of New Jersey. The registered address in New York was his in-laws' house. He voted in the same election, general election, in New Jersey and New York at the same year. We had the Board of Election rolls from both Bergen County and Rockland County. We had all the information. And ultimately, he declined the nomination because it was clear he had committed fraud and other instances. But it does happen. It does not happen on the scale that some are trying to say. And so to me, the issue is to make sure, number one, that our voter rolls are accurate and that they're cleaned. So if somebody's deceased, they should be removed. In Rockland County, for instance, when my grandmother died, a few weeks later, they removed her from the voter rolls. Now, that requires the Board of Elections to be active and doing their job and what they're supposed to do. Some boards are really good about it, others are not. When it comes to mail-in balloting, me personally, I support the use of it. A lot of our seniors use absentee ballots. There's no problem with that. The issue is when, in like the state of New Jersey, they decided if you requested an absentee ballot once, now we're just going to send you an absentee ballot every year. That is a problem because that's opening up a whole can of worms with somebody may not be expecting that they're going to get an absentee ballot. And we're seeing a lot of increase mail fraud where people are stealing checks. I had $300,000 worth of checks stolen a few months ago in a package. It was campaign checks, but it was in one package, and they were stolen by somebody out of USPS, out of UPS. Sorry, but so that there's been a big uptick in the number of people stealing checks. So if you start sending all these ballots into the mail without somebody expecting it, without somebody knowing that they requested it, that's a problem. If your voter roll isn't clean and you're sending out ballots to people who are deceased, that's a problem. It does happen. Does it happen on the scale that President Trump tried to say? No. Does it happen? Yes. And so I think the question is, with any of this, each state needs to make sure that what they're doing to ensure they have the correct voter rolls is important, that if somebody moves from Rockland to Westchester, that it is immediately updated and reflected in both county voter rolls and in the state voter roll, which New York has done a decent job of that. But it's just, it requires us constantly fine-tuning and making sure that when issues arise, we deal with it. You know, voters in New York chose not to allow for same-day registration. They rejected it 2 years ago when it was on the ballot. They did not allow for no-excuse absentee balloting.
Good.
The voters made that choice. They said no. So the politicians and the elected should respect that and continue to ensure that our system is functioning correctly.
How do we go about getting voter ID?
I support voter ID. You need an ID for just about everything. To me, the idea that it's somehow discriminatory, it's not. If you need services from an agency, you need ID. And I would be more than happy as part of voter ID to make sure that anybody who registers to vote, if they don't have a driver's license or that they get a ID paid for by the state. That's fine. There shouldn't be an impediment to register to vote or to vote, but a voter ID, an ID card, a photo ID, confirms who you are. Almost anywhere else in the world, they use a form of ID to confirm who you are when you vote. So it's not, it is not illogical, it's not wrong, and it's not discriminatory. It is intended to ensure the integrity of the process. So it's something that I think most Americans agree on. In a state like New York, it's going to be harder to get. But in other states, it's been enacted into law, and it hasn't impacted voter turnout in any way negatively. There's been no evidence that it somehow impacted or dissuaded somebody from voting. Yes.
You said that one of your priorities is a cap. I don't understand that. Could you please elaborate?
You're talking about the cap on salt?
Yeah, what is SALT?
Okay,
what does it stand for? I don't know if it's
No,
my
that's okay.
hearing or my brain that doesn't
So-
understand.
When Donald Trump was president, the Republicans enacted a tax reform bill. As part of that, state and local taxes, otherwise known as SALT, you were capped at $10,000 on what you could deduct on your federal income tax returns.
Oh, I see.
And there are multiple problems with it. Number one, and we all know, living in Westchester and Rockland, we pay among the highest property taxes in America. So our average property tax payer pays well over $10,000 in property taxes. Some of us pay that in school taxes alone. The issue is that it was, the number was arbitrary, $10,000. What I'm saying is it needs to be lifted. So I want all of you to be able, if you itemize your taxes, to be able to deduct, if it's 15,000, 20,000, 25,000, whatever the number is that we can agree on and get passed, but 10,000 is too low.
Absolutely.
And the other aspect of it is that if you're single, okay, you get the 10,000, and if you're married, you only get the 10,000. A lot of our tax code for married couples, it's doubled because, obviously 2 people. So there's more of to me, that's something that needs to be fixed on 2 levels. One, the value, the dollar amount, and 2, allowing for married couples that it be doubled, whatever that dollar amount that we agree on. Yep, not a problem. Hold on, I'll go to somebody else and then I'll come back to you. Yep.
Hi, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've wanted to meet you. I'm wondering if you are in support of any changes to Social Security if push comes to shove.
So changes in what way? Do you have a specific?
In any way.
So
Anyway.
in terms of what I would say is in terms of any cuts or negative changes, no. I think we all need to be realistic that there is a revenue problem. We're going to have to look at how to increase revenue into the trust fund. One idea is to raise the cap on what people can be taxed on, the dollar amount, so on their FICA taxes. So I'm not opposed to that, not necessarily embracing it, but at the same token, we have to figure out a long-term strategy here to make sure that the funding is there. So the objective is if you have to lift the cap on what people can be taxed on it, that's going to be one aspect of it, But in terms of any negative change that would reduce benefits, no. Does that answer your question? It's a very, the challenge here, and put the politics aside on it because obviously that consumes so much of what goes on. As I was saying before, if we do nothing, if we don't do anything to Social Security, it's going to go bankrupt. That's not a good solution. So we're going to have to, as a Congress and as a country, in a bipartisan way, deal with this. You're never going to have a partisan solution to Social Security. You can't. So there's going to have to be a bipartisan solution, and that's why I've supported putting together a blue ribbon commission to look at it and say and come back to Congress with all of the different possibilities to make sure that it is sustainable and viable for the long term. And that's the objective.
There's one of the best. Someone behind
Yes.
you,
He's got
Francis. Behind
you,
Francis.
Has anything been done about changing the amount that working people put into Social Security? Present working people.
That's what he was just talking about.
Well, that's what I was just saying. There may be that's what I'm saying is we may have to look at lifting the cap on what people pay into it.
Right. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Good afternoon, Congressman Lawler.
Good afternoon.
And
Nice to
thank
see you again.
And thank you so much for working so hard for us. It's
Thank
a
you.
tough job, but somebody's got to do it. I have 2 questions, if I
Yes.
may. I have to ask it. It's a burning question. Why did you vote against the Parents' Bill of Rights that you yourself introduced? It's almost like voting against yourself. I don't get it.
Yep.
Second part. Also, people have asked, why should we vote for Republicans when they vote with Democrats? 5 Republicans voted with Democrats. Not one voted with Republicans on this bill. I understand it has to be
You're talking about the Parents' Bill of Rights.
Parents'
Okay.
Bill of Rights.
So,
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you for
no
taking
problem.
my question.
So fundamentally, I support the Parents' Bill of Rights. I support the right of a parent to know exactly what their child is being taught in schools, to be involved in the decision-making process. And when it comes to the health and well-being of their child, to be totally informed and, depending on the age of the child, the consent of the parent. I negotiated, the issue came up with respect to the LGBTQ community. I negotiated the language with the bill sponsor, with the chair of the committee, and with leadership with respect to individual notification of the parent. So if the school was going to act to change a child's gender markers, its name, pronouns, bathroom accommodation, locker room accommodation, I felt that the school needed to notify the parent. And in the case of younger adults, get consent. At the end, and so we negotiated that language. That was in the bill. It was an amendment that was done through the committee process, and it was put in the bill. At the end, one of my colleagues decided to add 2 additional amendments. And I told them what my problem was with it. It's one thing when you're talking about your own child and the right as a parent to receive notification and communication about your own child. It's a whole nother thing when you start talking about giving notification for somebody else's child. And think about it in these terms. Let's say you don't believe in the use of some vaccines. Should the entire school be notified that X child did not get these vaccines? I think it's a very slippery slope, number one. Number two, the objective to me is to pass the bill into law. And by adding this stuff, guess what? The bill's not law. The Senate refused to take it up. They're not going to take it up. They're not going to take it up. But if you start going down the road of trying to legislate everything at a federal level, that much of which should be legislated at a state level and a local level. Education is a local issue. It is not. We purposely have not federalized education. The original language of the bill was very tight for a reason, because of that. And some of my colleagues, to make political points rather than actually care about the substance of the bill, added stuff that didn't need to be in there, number one, and number two, didn't actually help. I just fundamentally believe when you're talking about a child, at the end of the day, we can all have our opinions on some of these issues. At the end of the day, you're still dealing with a child. And that child, obviously, in the case of a trans youth, is dealing with mental health challenges, is dealing with a lot of, social challenges. You don't need to put a bigger target on that child's back by giving blanket district-wide notification on the school acting on that child. Right. And that's where I had a fundamental problem with it. So on the issue of Republicans voting with Democrats or Democrats voting with Republicans, look, most of the bills that pass Congress are bipartisan. The first day of every session week, there's a number of bills that literally pass unanimously because most bills are not as controversial. The Parents' Bill of Rights is a bill that I co-sponsored, I wanted to support, but you work through the legislative process. And sometimes there's things that come up in that process that you have to make a decision on. I'll defend my decision. If somebody doesn't like it, I understand, that's fine. But the ultimate goal, I support. And I've advocated for. And will continue to advocate for and fight to make sure it actually becomes law. Because at the end of the day, the whole objective is to make sure that parents have a fundamental right when it comes to their own child's education. That's what I believe in. That's what I will continue to fight for. And I want to see the bill become law. But sometimes there's also, sometimes the politics of this stuff gets in the way of actually getting something accomplished. And so right now, yeah, I voted no on it, but it didn't become law because of what occurred. So my objective is to make sure fundamentally that it becomes law. In terms of bipartisanship or, you know, in that instance, 5 Republicans voting with Democrats, the other day we had 35 Democrats vote with us on a bill. I mean, you look at the bill for what it is, and you would hope there's enough common sense people to vote for something that makes sense, that they should vote for. Sometimes within a party, there's going to be disagreement. I represent a district that Joe Biden won by 10 points. There's 70,000 more Democrats in this district than Republicans. I don't get the luxury of some of my colleagues who are in these R+30 districts to be able to just rant and rave. I actually have to listen to people and work with them. And that's what people in this district expect me to do. So I try to approach it from a place of logic and reason. And I'm firm and comfortable in my own beliefs and who I am. And I try to do what I think is right, keeping in mind the district that I represent, the difference of opinion within that district, but fundamentally always doing what I think is the right thing to do. And I'll keep trying to do that. And sometimes I may disappoint you or others in my vote, and for that I'm sorry, but I do what I think is right.
Could I ask a question? What is the next step on that? I mean, how will that be rectified?
So the Senate is not going to take up the bill. So the ultimately we need to change the Senate to get that through. At the end of the day, I think the objective, whether you're talking about your school board, whether you're talking about your state legislators, whether you're talking about Congress or the president and the governor, is to fundamentally fight for the right of parents to be involved in their children's education. And you're seeing it in these school board elections. People are, we just, in my town, the South Orangetown School District, just had another 2 incumbents defeated because of this issue. So it is happening. Maybe not to the scale that people like, but I would just tell you the objective on this bill ultimately will be to get it into law, but it likely would not happen unless we have a Republican Senate.
What about the school boards? I mean, not enough people go to vote for the school board elections or even know what the issues are.
As I'm sure the town board members would probably attest, and I apologize because I have to run to another event on the other side of the river, so this will be the last comment. But as the town board members probably can attest, most people show up to their town board meeting. They don't go to the school board meeting.
Right.
The biggest driver of taxes is the schools. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important. And obviously, if you have children in the school district or grandchildren in the school district, you have more of a vested interest on what's going on in that moment that they're in the school system. But I think just generally, people need to be more engaged and more informed about what is going on in the school district, especially with the school budgets, and as much as they are informed about what's going on in the broader town. And I think, unfortunately, politics being what it is today, I think a lot of people are just so exasperated by the whole process, by the discourse or lack thereof. And, they just throw their hands up and walk away from it. But I think no matter what, it's always important to be engaged, which is why it's great that all of you are here, and appreciate you giving me some time to stop by.
Thank you
And-
for coming.
The last thing I'll say is just, my office, we're always available if you need anything. The website is lawler.house.gov, and you can always reach out. My main office is in Pearl River in Rockland County. We have a secondary office that's going to be opening up in the town of Carmel, so not too far from you all, at Carmel Town Hall. So that'll be opening up soon on a daily basis. But we're here to help with whatever issues you have with Social Security, with Medicare, with the post office, with passports, whatever the situation is, we're happy to be helpful. Okay? Thank you all.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. We have to thank Deborah. Deborah really worked hard to get the congressman here. She was our liaison, so I think that we're going to have to stay in touch with his office, because obviously there are a lot of very worthwhile issues that were brought up. We need to watch what happens with Social Security now, and then anything else, even regarding the schools. I think Deborah, I think you're going to have your work cut out for you.
I'm ready. We also have his number, so I can give that out.
Good,
If
very
you call
good.
us, we keep it up there.
Thank you, thank you. Ellen Bloom from New York Presbyterian.
Great. Congratulations on having Congressman Lawler here. Just on behalf of New York Presbyterian, as always, we are so happy to support all of you. You mean so much to our community hospital, and we are always there. We are your community resource. We're going to move forward through this quickly. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Vinit Karor. Dr. Karor is a board-certified hematologist and oncologist at New York Presbyterian Hudson Valley Medical Group. Dr. Karor is based in our cancer center. He is an amazing oncologist.
Yeah.
I know we have many people who can attest to the excellent work that he has brought to our hospital. And without further ado, I will bring up Dr. Vinit Karor to speak about today's topic, which is melanoma. It is springtime. We have to be careful.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Ellen.
You want me to do the next one?
I can attest, Dr. Karor is a wonderful doctor, and he's very easy to talk to and is always very concerned about his patients. So I'm very happy to have that you took the time to come here today. Thank you, Dr. Karor.
Thank you, Ellen. Dr. Vinit Karor. Yeah, we can.
It's
give
on
this
the
a-
It's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Yes. So thank you, Ellen, for that introduction, and thank you, Chairperson Panios, and Vice Chairman, and the
Thank
members
you.
of the committee
Thank you.
for inviting me here. I'm so glad to kind of just come by and stop by and talk about this important topic. As you know, May is our skin cancer awareness month. So we are kind of heading into summer, and we want to kind of make everyone aware about this very preventable and very treatable condition. Very little is kind of information is out there that it affects so many people. It's so common that it affects 1 in 5 people in the community with skin cancers. As you know, the common skin cancers are more like squamous cell cancers and basal cell cancers. The less common is obviously melanoma, which is the more dangerous cancer that we all know about. Now, all these skin cancers, they share a common theme. They are kind of, they are increased in the presence of, increased exposure to sunlight. So that was less well known when, when folks were growing up. in their teens and stuff, and they have chronic sun exposure, and now later in their life they are dealing with the skin cancers. So we all know that sunlight has ultraviolet light, UVA and UVB light, and both of these spectrum of light are carcinogenic. So they can cause cancers, and mainly skin cancers. So we all like sunlight. We here in New York, because we have these few months to enjoy. So, but there are certain portions during the day where the UV is very high. So we would want to avoid that part of the day that's between like 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. where the UV light is quite high, and you would want to kind of avoid the sunlight at that time if possible. And also, take the common precautions, wearing a wide brim hat, using sunscreen. Ellen was generous to hand out some sunscreens today, and using an SPF, that is the sun protective factor, of more than 30 and above. Preferably they should be water resistant, and trying to kind of apply in all the sun exposed areas, and repeating that application every 2 hours or 3 hours is quite important in preventing sun related damage. So one might think that there are certain skin tones or certain genders that are more predisposed to skin cancer, but that is not true. We actually find skin cancers that are quite common seen in all skin tones. Okay, yes, there are certain skin tones that are that are more predisposed to skin cancers, but almost everyone can be affected. So this rule applies to everyone, in that regards. And when we talk about skin cancers, one of the other things, people have moles all the time, and and one of the understanding is, okay, do they turn into cancers? Do they turn into melanoma? But not all moles turn into melanoma. Okay, so we have to be aware about the moles in our body, and we need to be also aware if those moles are changing. Are they changing in their size? Are they increasing in their size? Are they changing in their shape? If any of that happens, then you should definitely seek out a board-certified dermatologist and, get attention to have that kind of taken care of. What is advised is, if we can practice, some people who are more prone to having sunburns in their lives, they are unfortunately at a higher risk of melanoma as compared to others. So once a month skin examination is something that we advise. And there are some easy steps to go through how you kind of do your skin checks, and be aware about the moles and the birthmarks that you have in the body, and do a full body evaluation once a month to kind of head to toe, looking at the back of the arms, looking at the back of the legs, looking at your palms and soles, okay, and making sure that none of those moles or birthmarks that you have are changing shape and size. And if any of that happens, as I said earlier, that you should seek attention with a board-certified dermatologist. There are some common themes when we talk about one of the more dangerous skin cancer, melanoma, again, which is still quite treatable, definitely, as I said, preventable, but still quite treatable. And what we know about melanoma is something what we call as A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, and this picture kind of tells you what that means. So A stands for asymmetry. So if you look at the mark, if one half of the mark looks different than the other half of the mark, then like in this picture, you can see that the right half of the mark looks a bit different than the left half of the mark. So that is, okay, there's something going on, and I think we need to pay attention to this, and we need to seek attention for this. Second is the border. If the border is nice and rounded, then it's less of a problem. But if the border is irregular, then that kind of predisposes you, that tells that some things are changing in that mole and we need to seek attention for that. C is the color of the melanoma. Normally you can look at your mole and it will be of a uniform color. If you start to see different shades there, brown, red, any of the color is changing, then that is something that we have to bring attention to. D is the diameter. So the rule of thumb is, if you look at the back of the eraser of a pencil, if the diameter of the lesion is bigger than the eraser on the back of the pencil, then that is something that we need to seek attention for. Okay, and E is evolving. If the spot is changing in shape, if you look at, if some people have a lot of moles on their body, and you can see if one mole is looking quite different than the other mole, then that is a sign that things might be changing or evolving, and we need to seek attention for that. So A, B, C, D, and E are some of the ways we try to educate our patients to keep themselves aware about it. So using your sunscreen, doing the monthly skin checks, and understanding that if something is evolving early on, seeking early attention helps to prevent and tackle a lot of the problems. Now, their treatment for melanoma has evolved quite a lot, and the way it is treated can involve removing the spot. Sometimes your doctor may suggest taking out a lymph node or a gland that the spot is feeding into, to see if the melanoma has spread there. And then, based on the thickness of the lesion and whether the lymph nodes are involved or not, they may suggest doing further treatment to decrease the risk of the melanoma coming back. So people who have skin cancers or who have sun-related damage, I would recommend you seeing your dermatologist on a regular basis, doing the monthly skin checks, and keeping an eye on the A, B, C, D, E is important. Obviously, protecting yourself from the sun is also quite important, and using the sunscreen with a SPF of more than 30 has been shown to reduce the risk of some of these very common conditions that affect most of us, quite regularly. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I'm happy to take some questions from the group.
Anyone have any questions for the doctor?
Yeah.
Are you saying that 50 is the best one to use, not 30?
Yeah, anything more than 30 is recommended as good sun protective factor, but 50 is definitely, would work much better than 32. So yeah, I think that's quite reasonable to kind of undertake that. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
You said a whole body check once a year and checking your body once a month yourself, you mean?
Yes. So just to kind of rephrase, I understand, what we do about skin body checks, as you are alluding to. So the person can do a skin body check once a month, the whole body check yourself, looking in front of a full length mirror from head to toe, making sure that they are aware about the spots and the moles on their body and making sure none of them are changing. There are many different applications on the phone that can also provide you with reminders to set up the reminder, hey, it's the time of the month to kind of redo these checks. And if you do have sun-related damage, then periodically seeing your dermatologist is recommended. Thank you. Yes.
What about the sunscreen that's in makeup?
So, again, it would be useful to kind of look at the back of that as to what that SPF factor is in the sunscreen. I will have to get back to you on that to kind of, if you have a certain product in mind, but looking back at the back of the product to see if they have written an SPF number along with the sunscreen it has. So, and if it is more than 30, then I think that should be, yeah. So that should, I think you should be good in that regards then.
Thank you. Very good, very good. Yes, we have another question.
Yes.
Does it become outdated?
Yes, so sunscreen can become outdated, and sometimes that can also, outdated sunscreens can also lead to allergic reactions. So definitely looking at the expiration on the product, to keep that in mind, that would be important. Yes.
Are the clothing you can buy now?
Yes.
Is they worth spending the money on? The long sleeve shirts are, they're very lightweight, but they're supposedly protect you from the sun.
Yes, so I think you bring up a good point about the clothing, wearing long clothing and clothing that have SPF factors built in it, and some of the, and yes, they are protective. Okay, so use of long clothing which have SPF in them are protective against the sun-related damage, but I would still, personally, I would still use the sunscreen, to kind of have the application,
And the hat.
Yes, and the hat.
Any more questions? Okay, well, thank you so much, Dr. Kulor. Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Wonderful, Doctor. Okay. Next, we have our town supervisor, Tom Dianis, going to give us a little update. Good afternoon, Supervisor.
Yeah, I was out in the sun a little bit.
Did you wear your sunscreen?
Probably not.
Oh.
How's everybody today? Good. We have, as usual, many things going on here in town. We have quite the busy weekend. We have one of our ladies of distinction is going to be honored up in Carmel. That would be Cindy Smith, who she orchestrates the St. Mary's Food Pantry, and she does a heck of a job. And kudos to her for what she does and how it gets done. I see Cindy on many a Saturday morning out there with her orange vest on, her yellow vest, and she's flagging cars in and out in the rain with an umbrella, the whole 9 yards. And kudos and congratulations to her. I'll be up there in Carmel tomorrow morning.
Which church is that? Is that the St. Mary's?
St. Mary's in Mohegan.
Yeah, incredible work.
Incredible job. Incredible. I mean, they have a walk-in reefer there, a refrigerator, and just shelves and shelves and stacks of stuff to give out. And they actually help the other food pantries in the area so that they don't run out of food. And everybody helps one another, along with the Garden of Hope. Once that gets going, they give hundreds and hundreds of pounds of fresh grown vegetables to the food pantries for people that can't, get by with what they make, and they go to the food pantries to supplement their food intake. But one of the things that's really good. The car show this weekend that was sponsored by the Parks and Recreation. It was going to be at the mall. They have a carnival there, by the way. I guess it's going to rain pretty good tomorrow. I don't know. That's what the weatherman says, but he's the only one that can be right as often as he can and still get paid. I don't know. I don't get that. But that's been canceled till Sunday. From there, there is what they call a Blue Mass at St. Pat's on Saturday at noontime. That goes to, first responders, your police, fire, ambulance.
Yeah,
Okay,
going
and
through
that goes from 12 to 1. I'm going to try and make that also. Being a past police officer of 25 years, I think it would be a good thing for me to do. God got me through. After getting hit by cars and everything else, he got me through.
Where's it going to be?
At St. Patrick's
St.
Church.
Patrick's. Yeah, I got the last part of my career. I got hit by 2 cars out on the Hutchinson River Parkway, and yeah. So it was he got me through. I didn't know what happened until I woke up and looked around. But yeah, it was a pretty bad accident. But and then after that, you have the Follow the French. And it's a demonstration, and it's an encampment, and because this was heavily French fortified in this area, they're going to be up at the Grange Fair. There's going to be musket shooting. There's going to be reenactments. There's going to be someone from Yorktown, Virginia, that's going to be at
That's cool.
that for Yorktown, New York. So that's kind of neat. So I'm going to try and make that quick. And then that starts tomorrow morning and goes on through the afternoon. I think 4 o'clock that ends. And the people that have been working on that to put it on have worked diligently and feverishly to get it all done and taken care of. And unfortunately, there is not a rain date for that because they have the reenactors coming from everywhere to come in and actually give the demonstrations and so forth. So they're going to be there, rain or shine. I think they're coming in Friday night. They're going to camp out overnight up there and kind of make it a real authentic camp of Rochambeau's troops. I'm trying to think, I'm going to keep it short and sweet today. And I know we got a Friday. Everybody wants to get home for the weekend. I want to open up to any questions you folks got, but that's kind of a brief overview of what's going on at least this weekend. And we just continue to move on here and try and get things done. We got a lot of action going on a lot of different fronts. So can I answer any questions for you folks?
Here's one.
Yes, ma'am. Homeless. I don't know how many may be homeless that may be in shelter someplace. I can't answer that one. There's a good percentage. They service between, at St. Mary's, about 300 people a week, 300 families a week who come through their food pantry to get additional nourishment for the particular week. And they actually do even have fresh meats there, too, to supplement people's inability to be able to go out and purchase stuff. Not only cereals and dry goods and canned goods and so forth, but they actually do have meats and vegetables there. Yes?
Seton Church next door collects weekly, and it goes over to St. Mary's Church.
Yep. They collect from a lot of the churches. During Fam Jam that just got over the weekend, they actually collected a couple of pickup truck full of food to deliver to St. Mary's.
Wow.
That was put together, between
she does a wonderful
Fam Jam
job.
and St. Mary's. They engaged Lakeland and Yorktown school districts to say, okay, come on, let's see how much food we can get. Let's fill the back of the pickup truck and bring it in. And then we had people drop off food while they were there, and they had people donate money. There was a QR code where you could donate money directly to St. Mary's, and then it gets distributed from that point.
She does an excellent job. She's been doing it for quite a while.
Oh, my God.
It's incredible.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing, and to see the number of people. I drive past a number of them on a weekly basis, and sometimes I go past the one on Oregon Road, and it's from the food bank, and it goes all the way up past the town hall with cars lined up there to get food.
Incredible.
So there is a definite need. So if you see a little box someplace that says, hey, could you drop a box of cereal off, and you can afford to do so, it will be so greatly appreciated. When the donations were being taken at the Fam Jam, $5 would feed one, $10 would feed two, $20 would feed a family of four. So, anything that helps these folks out, if you can do it, it would be a wonderful thing.
I know our church, St. Patrick's, in the vestibule, the men there collect food, and you can just walk in, leave a can of food, leave a box of pasta. My husband and I try, every Sunday we try to leave something back there, and they hand it out. So there are a lot of wonderful people who are working on this. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's let's face it, folks, this is what Yorktown is all about.
Yeah.
We're all a family. We love you all. Everybody loves one another. It isn't that we aren't that community that shuns people away and doesn't interact with different people of different faiths and religions and ethnicities. Everyone is welcome here. And everybody tries to help the people that are here. So, like I say, we are all just one big family and love you all.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Yep.
Thank you.
There's a question.
You got a
Anybody
question?
else? Yes.
No, you don't have to.
No, it's just a statement. I follow the town board on TV. I read about the town board in New York Town News, so I follow it diligently. And I just have to say, under your administration, it is transparent, and thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. There's some that have varying opinions on that, and we won't get into that. But we just try to do the right thing for everybody out there. And there are things that may seem to be not transparent, but they really are. There's nothing to hide. What are we hiding? This isn't War and Peace that we have going on here. And I thank you so much for the kudos. And I hope all of you at some point, I know it gets kind of late at night, but if you want to come out to a town board meeting, come on down. We're like Monty Hall, come on down. And the more the merrier. We give out a lot of information, or you can sit home and watch it on TV too.
Yeah.
They won't let me do that. Okay? They say my ratings will go down if I sit home. I don't know. I don't know what that's all about. Anybody have any other questions? Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, I was on the phone with the county executive and his deputy yesterday to find out what he knew, what he thinks is happening, what he thinks may happen, and what may be going on. Because at one point in time, I forget if it was last year or the year before now, where they brought the immigrants into Westchester County Airport in the dark of night, and supposedly everybody didn't know about it. Well, there's so much eyes on it now that people are seeing different things, and I said I want to be kept in the loop. I want to know what's going on. I want to know where people are. I said because I want my residents informed. I want them to know what's going on, whether it be in this town, a neighboring town, or something, of what's going on and where it's going on. And I think it's only right that they do that. So where it lays at this point, I have no more information, but rest assured that we will handle it if it comes along, and we will do what we have to do.
And did they say that they would inform you or keep you informed and the other supervisors? Probably not.
They said that they would keep me informed. Mm-hmm. I care about one thing, and that's the town of Yorktown.
Of course.
And I want to make sure that we are first and foremost on my town board's mind.
Good, good.
On our town board's mind. It's not my town board. It's all of ours.
Very good. Okay.
I'm the guy.
You're the guy.
You're the best.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
There's a young lady. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I came to you before about the shelter in case there's an emergency about bringing your pets.
Yes.
How is that?
You can bring your pets as long as they are contained in some type of either a crate or a small kennel. If you have a cat or something like that, but they must be contained. And then, of course, take them out to relieve themselves, walk them, and have the food. We don't supply any food for any type of shelter that may be caused by a storm or anything like that. We might have water there. You can, but they must be contained and must be behaved.
Okay,
That's
very
basically
good.
it.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
You're welcome.
We
Thank you,
really
folks.
appreciate it. Thank
Everybody
you so
have a
much.
wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
We get closed. Can I say something later? Now?
Okay. I want to thank our lunch sponsor, New York Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital. I want to remind you that Memorial Day is May 29th. And you have something you'd like to say?
Yes. Anybody, Francis McVetti, been through a whole thing with construction. Anybody who's looking to build a house, not build a house, put a bathroom in, a sink or anything like that, and you go to a contractor, be very careful. In the contract is a 3-day clause. If you don't cancel the contract within 3 days, you're liable for the whole thing, even if you don't want to do it.
That's it.
So be careful, make sure you read it carefully. If you have any doubts, call somebody, a son, a daughter, a lawyer, anybody. Read the contract. Last thing, we're talking about migrants. I don't know what the definition of migrants is to you. It's in the dictionary. And certainly, these are not migrants on our southern border. It's on our northern border. We have to use words mean something, and migrant is not one of the people that are coming across the border. Sorry
Okay.
to say.
Okay, well, we hope to see you next month, June 16th. We will adjourn at this point, so be safe, stay well, and we'll see you next month. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.